Welcome to the Podkey summary of Discover the Spatial Preview Framework from WWDC 2026. Apple's Spatial Preview Framework is basically a bridge from the Mac to Vision Pro, and it's aimed at making spatial work feel a lot less clunky. The big idea is simple. A Mac app can push documents or 3D scenes into a headset session without needing separate visionOS app code, and then keep everything in sync live. A lot of the interesting details are about how those sessions work, how collaboration happens, and how Apple is trying to hide the heavy lifting so developers can focus on the actual content. At the top level, Spatial Preview lets a macOS app extend its content into Vision Pro's spatial environment, so the headset becomes more than just a second screen. When a session starts, the framework can automatically launch Quick Look on the headset, which means the Mac app doesn't have to build custom Vision Pro presentation code just to get something in front of the user. That matters because it lowers the barrier pretty dramatically. If you already have a Mac app working with visual assets, there's a much cleaner path to making those assets feel immersive. There are really two lanes here. Document preview sessions are for things like spatial photos, videos, PDFs, and regular images. USD preview sessions are the 3D lane, built specifically for USD content. Both launch a quick look scene, but the behavior is a little different depending on what you do next. If you create a new document session, you get a new scene. If you're just updating the content, the existing scene gets reused, which is a lot smoother than constantly tearing everything down and starting over. One of the strongest parts of this is the real-time synchronization. Changes made on the Mac or on Vision Pro are mirrored instantly through a live USD stage, so a designer can tweak something on one device and see it show up on the other without a manual refresh. That includes material overrides, camera viewpoint changes, and annotation edits, which makes this feel less like file sharing and more like one shared workspace spread across two devices. Annotations are part of that shared workspace too. If someone adds an annotation on one device, it propagates to the other, and the metadata travels with it, including things like the author and unique IDs stored on USD prims. And if prims are marked with spatial editable metadata, they become directly manipulable in Vision Pro using gestures. So you can actually move objects around in the headset, and those edits sync right back to macOS. That's a pretty nice shift from the old review pattern, where one person points at a thing and somebody else has to make the actual change later. Apple also folds SharePlay right into Spatial Preview. Multiple people can join a live session, review the same spatial content together, and see each other's edits in real time. For teams doing design review, that cuts down a lot of the usual back and forth where everyone exports notes, screenshots, and slightly different versions of the same asset. There's also some automatic scene optimization happening under the hood, and honestly, this is one of those practical details that matters more than it sounds. Spatial Preview can apply mesh decimation, texture downsampling, and even scene reconstruction when needed to keep complex USD scenes running well on Vision Pro. Developers can opt out by passing an unmodified flag, but then they're taking the risk that a scene may exceed device limits and fail to share cleanly. So yes, you can insist on sending the untouched giant scene, but the framework is gently suggesting that maybe you don't do that. Another useful piece is update contents. Instead of launching a whole new session, an app can replace the displayed file inside the same quick look scene. That keeps the existing scene state intact and avoids the overhead of spinning up a brand new session every time the user picks something else. A good example is an immersive gallery, where selecting a different render swaps the content almost instantly. On the device side, the framework can auto-select an endpoint if Mac Virtual Display is already active. If it isn't, developers can embed a picker UI so the user can choose any nearby Vision Pro tied to the same iCloud account. Apple's suggested pattern is a Swift UI sheet, which sounds small, but it's the kind of thing that keeps the experience from getting weird when the expected headset connection isn't available. For developers already living in USD Kit adds Swift APIs for loading stages, applying material overrides, and switching variant sets, Those variants can represent different object placements, like furniture layouts, and changing a variant on macOS updates the Vision Pro scene right away. That makes rapid iteration much more natural, especially for design workflows, where the whole point is comparing alternatives without losing momentum. The event APIs round this out in a very developer-friendly way. Spatial Preview exposes events for animation playback time, session sync progress, and USD notices about prim changes. So an app can build practical interface pieces like loading bars, playback controls that stay aligned across devices, or status feedback during large transfers. It's the difference between a neat demo and a tool that actually feels dependable when the files get big and the session gets busy. Taken together, this feels like Apple trying to make spatial review and editing less of a separate world and more of a natural extension of Mac workflows. If that works, the flashy part isn't really the headset. It's that people can keep working without stopping to think about the plumbing. This episode was generated by Podkey. Create your own at podkey.fm.